Good evening, everyone. Meteorologist Jessica Blum here, joining you in the 1011 Now Alert Center. I've got to first set the scene here this evening because I think, does it get better than this in February? We just got into the 70s today. If you step outside right now, there is some light rain moving through the capital city. Some rumbles of thunder have been reported in town, and we've got Nebraska basketball moments away from tip-off. This is a February evening that I don't think it gets much better than that. In fact, I think kind of the smell of rain that's out there right now makes me itch for late spring and almost summer thunderstorms, but we're not quite there just yet. So just some general thunderstorms that have been crossing eastern Nebraska from time to time. In fact, you see the low-hanging clouds on our Lincoln Skyview camera here this evening as I pull up that vantage point first. Not a whole lot of rain expected, but we'll take what we can get, and if we can get a rumble of thunder out of it, I don't think anyone's really complaining. It's just an interesting kind of sense to engage at this time of the year. Yes, the rumble of thunder on February 17th. But I also wanted to take you through here this evening the fact that the Storm Prediction Center outlook that we had been talking about through our early evening shows has been downgraded, so no longer a marginal risk across much of eastern Nebraska. Lincoln even not included in the general thunderstorm outlook, but there are still portions along I-80 toward Omaha and portions of far northeastern Nebraska within that thunderstorm outlook that maybe they could still hear some rumbles of thunder going into the next couple hours or so until a lot of this activity is exiting to the east. In fact, let's take it to radar right now to show you what rain is out there, again, covering much of Lancaster County and maybe even a few rumbles of thunder in there. I'm going to stop radar. You were looking at a loop of the last hour, but I wanted to take you in on a closer look to see. No recent reports of any lightning strikes, it looks like, but you can see a little bit better organization to maybe some moderate rainfall just north of Nebraska City at this point, just past 8 p.m., February 17th in 2026. So a little light rain from here down toward almost Pawnee City and Wymore. And again, this is going to quickly kind of exit to the east over the next couple hours, so just a quick taste of a little bit of precipitation. I'd be surprised if many of us record much. In fact, the airport just updated just before the 8 o'clock hour, and they've recorded 200ths of an inch, and I think we'll take that. That puts us up to 300ths of an inch is all for the month of February. But even with snow chances toward the end of this week, there isn't a lot of liquid equivalent precipitation that comes out of snow, even though we'll take that too, just because it's been so dry, especially the last few weeks for the beginning of the month and really the beginning of 2026. But that's a look at your radar picture across southeast Nebraska. Again, some light rain in Lincoln. I'll go back to that Lincoln Skyview camera. A rumble of thunder, the smell of rain, if you can believe it, is out there. The water, there's even a water drop on the lens right now, kind of centered on the bottom of your screen, kind of makes some of those city lights in the distance a little fuzzy. But a little light rain as you join me here this evening. And as we look at our Buffalo Roofing Skyview camera. Also today, there was extremely critical fire danger we were concerned with. In fact, red flag warnings are still in effect until about 10 o'clock tonight as we await those winds to come down some. And I will say, even with some of those showers and thunderstorms, there still have been some reports of 40 and even 50 mile per hour wind gusts, most recently up toward Wahoo, with some of these fairly weak and elevated thunderstorms. And as that moves through, again, we should be much drier behind it, but the winds will come down, and so the fire danger won't be there as much overnight and into tomorrow, even though you can already see the fire weather watch issued for portions of northeast Nebraska into Iowa for tomorrow, because we are not expecting too much precipitation out of these showers and isolated thunderstorms here tonight in eastern Nebraska. But beyond that, we are going to talk about accumulating snow likely for portions of Nebraska. I think it's possible here in Lincoln. We haven't solidified how much we're going to see in the capital city. We have an idea, and I'm going to share you that early idea here on this live stream. But there's also going to be a notable much colder feel to the end of this week, considering we've been hanging out with fake spring temperatures for so long in the 60s and even the 70s early this week, and that's going to come kind of crashing down by the end of the work week even. In fact, Thursday is when the colder air and some snow is going to set up for much of Nebraska as we see some higher Northerly winds pull in that colder air mass and a good low pressure system setting up a band of snow, especially in northern Nebraska. I think some wind chills could be in the 20s and teens during the day on Thursday. And then there could be difficult travel conditions, especially in northern Nebraska with some of the areas of heavy snow. And there could be areas of blowing and drifting snow with wind gusts approaching 35, maybe 40 miles per hour as some of that snow is falling by the end of this week. So winter is going to come back all at once, really, by the end of this week, namely by Thursday. And we have a lot to talk about to prepare you for that in the meantime. As for your Lincoln Weather Almanac for the day today, we did get to 72 degrees. I know we had been looking at either matching or breaking that old record, but we just didn't end up getting there today with the wind, with the cloud cover for much of the day too. So high of 72 degrees did it for us today. A low of 40 degrees though. And you'll notice the almanac has updated too with 0.02 of an inch being recorded for the day today and maybe not done, as these areas of light rain move through the capital city. But before today, we only had 1/100th of an inch, and the sunset time, now it's 6:04. Your high temperatures across the state, a lot of other locations able to break the old record, if not match the old record. You'll see Grand Island, Hastings, even Lexington, and McCook shattering their old records from either 1981 or 2017. Lexington shattered it by 10 degrees today. Quite something. Lincoln did not manage to, again, set that new record or even match the old record from 2017, not too long ago. But several other locations did, as you look at, yes, high temperatures in the 80s for Lexington, the upper 70s. In south central Nebraska along I-80 toward the Tri-Cities, 73 in York, 73 in Columbus, and again, this came with a lot of wind. So I don't think it was as pleasant as yesterday really was, but I think we'll take another spring day this warm, and I think we'll enjoy one more warmer day relative to where we should be at this time of the year for Wednesday before we transition back to winter on Thursday. There's a look at more Skyview cameras across the state here this evening. You'll see some cloud cover out there, but mainly dry for everyone else outside of Lincoln and areas in eastern Nebraska. But we do have these low-hanging clouds, so it is still 60 degrees at the Lincoln Airport, 62 degrees here at the 1011 studio with the southwest wind at only 8 miles per hour. So that has come down quite a bit from where it was at much of this afternoon with some gusts over 40, if not almost 45 miles per hour. I do have that in here to share with you tonight, too, where some of those wind gusts were peaking here for your Tuesday afternoon. But current temperatures sit in the lower 60s, still 64 in Omaha and Superior. A lot of 62s off to our east, and again, areas of rain moving through far eastern Nebraska. But look at the temperatures dropping out west. 42 degrees right now in Chadron, 41 in Sydney. Maybe look quickly at the 24-hour temperature change. And yeah, for some of those locations in the Panhandle, that's almost 10 degrees colder than we were at this point yesterday. But look at how much warmer eastern Nebraska is compared to this time yesterday. Again, still hanging out closer to 60 degrees, but notably the wind has come down quite a bit for a lot of us in eastern Nebraska, at least. You still look at some strong winds out in western Nebraska, sustained at 33 miles per hour out of the west in Ogallala, still at 26 miles per hour in North Platte, with some wind gusts approaching 40 miles per hour, if not above that at times here this evening. So it's still cranking out west. That doesn't surprise me. We still have some lingering wind gusts to our south and east from Lincoln toward Nebraska City and Fall City, too, that have yet to kind of weaken overnight. But here is a look at your strongest and really peak wind gusts across the state, close to 45 miles an hour in Lincoln. Grand Island topped out at a 55 mile per hour wind gust, and then you look at the 60s recorded in Sydney, Scottsbluff, and Chadron. So blustery day across the board for everyone with this dynamic system. It's been quite something. In fact, I reached out to my friend at the National Weather Service to kind of pick her brain as she worked today. And we did have that marginal risk come out from the Storm Prediction Center, but just high winds throughout the state, especially out in western Nebraska, and then, yes, areas of rain, and then some clearing kind of behind this arcing band of showers and weak thunderstorms that, again, are elevated in nature, but you'll see from time to time they do come together. Like you notice that leading cell that's crossing from Nebraska City toward Union, and maybe some lightning occasionally with that, or a rumble of thunder. Maybe a little more light rain for Lincoln before all is said and done. And then once this moves out of here, we're done for tonight and really Wednesday. But as UC Skycast goes through tonight, mostly clear skies. I think we'll start out with a lot of sunshine on Wednesday. We'll call it mostly sunny, I think, for the day. But you'll see out west an increase in cloud cover ahead of another disturbance that could bring a wintry mix by Wednesday evening to portions of the Panhandle toward the Front Range of the Rockies before kind of a transition over to snow as we head into Thursday early, and that's starting to stretch out a little further east with time. We could see a brief mix in southeast Nebraska of rain, a wintry mix over to some snow before seeing some snow, I think, settling into the second part of Thursday. But you'll notice this really takes aim for northern Nebraska. There have been some shorter term models that do trend this a little bit farther south, but still I think we have yet to buy stock in that or really believe in it just yet. We kind of want to see how tomorrow and more model runs play out, but right now we're kind of believing this northern solution for much of northern Nebraska to take the hit with some snow and accumulating snow, and several inches possible. This is through Thursday night by 10 o'clock. Still could be some lingering light snow over areas of northeastern Nebraska before this continues to pull away by overnight and into early Thursday. Ignore that transition. I didn't change it from when we were talking about the Storm Prediction Center outlook, I think, yesterday or the night before, but there's a winter storm watch at this point that could expand further east, I think, as we get a better idea of where this band of snow is going to set up. And I think, again, that heaviest band, we're getting an idea of northern Nebraska, kind of preparing for that. So for now, you can see that there are a handful of counties in northwestern Nebraska under a winter storm watch. For right now, too, the National Weather Service is saying this area could see anywhere from 4 to 8 inches from Wednesday night into Thursday afternoon, and there could be areas of drifting and blowing snow as wind gusts could be approaching 35 miles an hour at times. So keep that in mind. I don't think this is where this map will end up. You'll have to keep it tuned with us and these live streams. Again, we'll have these at 10:30 tomorrow morning and then 8 o'clock at night, but then Brad will have you covered at 10 o'clock later tonight for the latest forecast if this expands. May not tonight, maybe until tomorrow morning. And stay tuned to, of course, Brandon Rector's morning forecast to see kind of where the National Weather Service may update the winter weather alerts across the state as we get closer to this Thursday event. We're talking the night of tomorrow, Wednesday night, February 18th into February 19th for several inches of snow. And as we say, we are believing more of this northern solution across the state. You'll see that the European model does take that stripe of snow with the darker blues and purples north of the interstate. And actually decent agreement with the American model, the GFS, as well, north of I-80, across northern Nebraska for places like Ainsworth, O'Neill, Valentine, Chadron. Kind of keep in mind that you could see definitely some accumulating snow through the end of the work week. So our official snowfall potential and forecasted map at this point looks like this. At 3 to 6 band over much of northern Nebraska, again, north of the interstate, then areas around the interstate into the north, not including Lincoln, in a band of about 1 to 3, and then much of southern Nebraska, including Lincoln, maybe that trace to an inch. With, again, that heaviest band setting up to the north. This is kind of what we would tend to believe with where that low pressure system tracks and the better forcing to the north. But you will have to keep it tuned to us as we kind of fine-tune some of the details as we get closer to Thursday, just for the potential that this could shift further south, which would give Lincoln a chance at a little bit better accumulations, but not believing that just quite yet. And you'll see, in fact, this is the precipitation potential once you melt all that snow down, kind of what we could be looking at through the next 3 days. And a tenth to a half an inch in northern Nebraska with some of that snow, maybe a tenth to a quarter of an inch for those that were in that 1 to 3 inch band closer to the interstate. Lincoln, a trace to a tenth of an inch. It's not looking like much over the next 3 days. But we'll take what we can get because it has been dry and rather quiet around here, and now it just seems like the weather is getting active all at once, and we've got a lot to talk about. I mean, you can imagine the evening shows. I was talking with Bill and Brad in the Severe Weather Center. I mean, we had red flag warnings today. We had a winter storm watch issued. We had a marginal risk for severe weather with an update as of 2 o'clock this afternoon that did get downgraded. But yeah, all of that, winter weather, cold temperatures taking a drastic dip by the end of this week. So you can imagine our meteorologists were asking for a little bit more time and what our producers could afford to give them here for this evening, just because this isn't normal, and we haven't been here for quite some time through February to see all of this at once. So, again, a lot to talk about. But your Lincoln Schaefer's forecast for tonight has us still at 62 degrees by 9 o'clock with some scattered showers out there, largely moving across far eastern Nebraska and exiting, especially by tomorrow morning, if not overnight for a lot of us. Still at 40 degrees, I think, tomorrow morning. So another morning where we're looking at our temperatures in the morning starting out closer to our average high with a light westerly wind and not nearly as windy tomorrow. Maybe a little bit breezy at times, but a high of 65 degrees for your Wednesday. That will feel nice for one more day. Spring-like before kind of the bottom will fall out by Thursday, and I'll show you what I mean here in a second. But your overnight low temperatures across the state, teens and 20s in the higher elevation of the Sandhills, but upper 30s to around 40 degrees and maybe even some middle 40s out toward the Missouri River by tomorrow morning, and high temperatures in the low and middle 60s, with some only creeping back to around 50 degrees in the northwest corner of the state. Then we go into Thursday, and you're not looking at morning lows anymore. This is your afternoon high temperatures. So tomorrow morning's lows kind of turn into Thursday's highs, if not even looking a little colder than that. Lincoln at 38 for a high on Thursday, some even in the 20s for highs, with areas of snow throughout the day, a good northerly wind that I wanted to talk about that I remembered I didn't actually throw in here. But winds on Thursday, as we're talking about some of the snow coming through, could be gusting around 30 and maybe 40 miles per hour. That's even in Lincoln, across areas of northern Nebraska, so something to keep in mind. But as we talk about these forecasted highs, I wanted to show you the future feels like by the afternoon on Thursday. It is getting colder with time. This is kind of maybe registering a little bit more snow on the ground, too, for some of these areas. So some maybe sub-zero. I'm looking at the graphic we have, and nothing's been adjusted. Sometimes we adjust these maps to lean a little bit colder if we think it's going to be that much colder, but this is what the model's actually rating at this point. And, you know, teens to lower 20s if we're lucky in southeast Nebraska at times during the afternoon, so that's quite the difference. And what I'm calling a drastic dip in temperatures, when you're talking about some that were closer to 80 degrees today, that will be closer to 10 by the afternoon on Thursday. So 70-degree drop in a matter of a couple days time. So the end of this week, I think, is just going to be a painful reminder maybe for some that winter is still here and can come back at any time. So you'll notice the temperatures tanking from even tomorrow into Thursday, and then we stay in the middle, if not lower 30s, heading into this weekend. Sunday with a high of 33 degrees, then rebounding to 40 by Monday. And then this is kind of looking at not too much snow on the ground for Lincoln if we see it, so we would rebound pretty nicely through the middle of next week, closer to 60 degrees already. As for your 10-day forecast, I did not update this, and I should have. As you can imagine, there was a lot going on in the Severe Weather Center, and I thought I had everything updated, and I, in fact, did not. There we go. So as for tomorrow, really warm for everyone, closer to 60, if not in the 60s, outside of O'Neill and Valentine. But then the turnaround for some from the 60s down to the 20s for afternoon highs, and that's not factoring in a wind chill. It's going to be quite the shock to your system if you don't mentally kind of wrap your head around that right now. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do for us here this evening, is give you a good heads up, as any good meteorologist would, to what's coming and the next big change, really. As for the precipitation chances, let me update this real quick so it reads true. There you go. Give it a second to load. We do have a 40% chance for snow here in Lincoln by Thursday. Again, maybe a light mix before some of the snow gets going. But you'll see areas of northern Nebraska or even just north of Lincoln toward Omaha, Norfolk, kind of peaking at 60% chances. Kind of baffles me that we only have a 20% chance around O'Neill and Valentine for snow at that point, but then the chance for precipitation kind of dwindles again over the weekend. There may be a second system, though, that we're looking at Friday night into Saturday, and that's kind of sparking that next 20% chance for a lot of us before we're looking at middle and end of next week once again for any precipitation chances. So take that with a grain of salt, and maybe take these precipitation outlook and temperature outlooks from the Climate Prediction Center with a grain of salt too, even though I think this is kind of highlighting northern Nebraska for a decent chance at above average precipitation during this time frame. And this is leading into early March even though, and then still looking really red on this temperature outlook, meaning we're going to be likely above average for the end of the month into the early portions of March, which would be above the lower 40s. So I think that'll start to come into play once we get closer to that time frame. But again, mild day tomorrow to enjoy and take advantage of before maybe we're hibernating a little bit more or having to bundle up with some more layers. I know I might have to dig out the coat because I've ditched it the last several days, but you'll need it by Thursday. You may need the hat, the gloves by then too, with highs only in the 30s, but again, the feels like temperature for a lot of us across the state in the teens and 20s. Look at the overnight lows too. We've updated even the low temperature from Sunday night into Monday down to 9 degrees. So winter's going to come, last for the weekend into early next week before we can rebound by especially next Tuesday and Wednesday. So keep that in mind. Again, we're going to continue to kind of fine-tune the forecast as we get closer to this snow event across Nebraska by the end of the work week, namely by Thursday. And we will be kind of adjusting things on our web, on our social media, and of course on air and on our streaming platforms. So stay tuned, stay with us as we continue to work hard and chip away at what we will deem likely in this next snow event, because it's been quite some time since we've even had a decent chance for some widespread snow across the state of Nebraska. And our first risk for severe weather for 2026 happened today. It was kind of interesting. I did, if you caught it, post on social media about fake spring being the risk for severe weather in eastern Nebraska, and then winter coming back with the winter storm watch in northwestern Nebraska already issued for a few counties. And again, that may expand. So that's another reason to stay tuned to the forecast and what we continue to update leading into Thursday. But for now, again, enjoy the warmer weather for Wednesday, and we'll see you next time.
1011 News is everywhere. Download our